Hey guys, hopefully you can hear me through the fan. I'm going to be doing my video on outlining, part of my prompts system that I use when I'm doing Nano. Okay, so I have thought about how to do this video, and you know what, I can't exactly show you how the best way to outline something is or to plot a novel is. I have left some links below to things that you can use and things that I have been looking at recently. Not that I use them all the time, but these things have worked in the past, so I wanted to share those with you. So when it comes to outlining, for me, there are a couple of ways that I like to do it. Sometimes I mix it up, sometimes I use all of them, sometimes I only use one of them. I'm showing you two of my notebooks, which have been my Nano notebooks in the past, and my novels that I'm working on now. So the first thing I look at is my mood and how I feel like I want to achieve the best planning I can. Now, I usually do it like I do with anything that's related to outlining or note taking. I use colors and I like to get creative. So, sorry guys, some of the ways that you can outline if you do not want to do it so linear, which is, you know, just dot points and things like that, is a mind map. Now, and a flow chart. Now, I'm not very good at flow charts. I've drawn you a very tiny portion of what a flow chart could look like, but flow charts do not work for me, so I just get too confused. So this is my very crappy example of what a flow chart could look like. Okay, so you know, you've got your hook, your plot turn, your pinch, your middle, plot 2, plot pinch 2, and resolution. And then out this side you could say, okay, so the hook of the story is that they're a happy family, okay? And then you could extend that and say, okay, who are those members of the happy family? And then you do like branches and stuff like that of each person and how it relates to this thing, and then the page ends up like exploding all over the wall. And yeah, I did that with one of my novels back in 2007, 2008. Yeah, it did work, but I had a couple of manila folders that I unfolded, did everything on, and it was just all over my wall, and it was just like, whoa, too much. I don't have those right now, they're in the shed, so we'll deal with that. Another way that I do find very helpful, and something I'm actually doing right now, and going back through some of some work, is to mind map. Now, basically the way I do mind mapping is that I'm just going to show you guys. This is my sexy book, chapter 1. We'll just go to whatever chapters available right now. Okay, we'll go to chapter 1. Now, when I mind map, I just say, okay, the topic is here, which is chapter 1, and then everything I can think about. This is also part of brainstorming for your novel as well. You could put in the middle your character or your setting or your idea for your story, and then what you do is you sit there, and you can do it timed or you can just do it whenever you feel like it over the next couple of days or next week, and any ideas that you get for your novel, you just put a branch off like a little arrow. And as you can see here, mine's very all over the place, but as like with the flowchart, you can obviously like you can do a big one here and say, okay, this is my novel. This, whatever's on this side here, is my characters. And then you could branch off, you know, say Tim is your character. Then you could do tiny other branches off, like, you know, his age, etc., etc. Or you can do one of these for each of your characters, each part of the novel. This is how I kind of work out how my story is going to pan out, because I like asking a lot of questions, and I like to know about my characters, and this is part of character development as well. So, mind mapping is a good way to outline or plot your novel. As you can see here, I've just gone back and done a few things for my novel. Only up to chapter 5. I have a few more to go. A lot more to go. And then I like at the bottom, I like to say questions. So is there any other questions that I need to know about my characters or my story, or anything that I can think of? Kind of like notes. I just write little notes. And you can do that on post-it notes as well. Anything I need to know about my story, and it's nano, so you learn these kind of things. So it really depends whether you want to extensively plan your novel, or whether you just want a brief idea of the who, what, when, where, and why and how. I think that's it. So it really depends. But for me personally, I'm showing you what works for me. This works for me. I do a lot of different things, so that's why I have a lot to show you guys. Another way that I could outline is with dot points or bullet points or whatever you want to call them. And when I was working on my other novel, I think it was last year, I didn't have the mind map and things like that. I did all my outlining from the get-go like this. So I pretty much had a brief idea of where I wanted to go with my story last year, and then I just sat down and did it. And so this is my outline. So I probably spent about 15 minutes before I started writing down any scene or any idea or anything I could think of that I wanted to work on that day, and then I wrote it down. And then sometimes during the writing process I would have other ideas, so I'd have to write those ones down too. And everything marked here in pink is all my outlines. So there's some outlines here, outlines there, and more outlines in my second novel of that series. So that is one way that you can outline your novel, by doing it in dot points. Again, you can cover everything with dot points, and I do suggest that you do keep whatever novel you're working on in one book or a binder folder. But I like to keep everything in one book. So yeah. So that is dot points, and that is mind mapping. Another way that you could outline your novel is by using index cards. Now these ones are very old and they relate to that story there. I decided that I wanted to have all my plot points and everything and all the information about my novel, all the just basics, on index cards. So these ones are smaller, I have no idea why. These are part of the first one. So orange was beginning, and then I did my first quarter, second quarter, anti-climax, and my climax. So I've also color-coded those as well. So color-coding can be really helpful when you're outlining a novel as well, especially when you're doing the breakdown of particular parts in a novel and structuring it. So yeah, and this is part of the beginning as well. So that is another way that you can do them. Index cards are pretty cheap, I'm guessing. In Australia, they're about $4, $5 for a pack of 100 or 200. They used to be cheaper. That's why I have so many. And I'm thinking of bringing back this kind of outlining. At the same time, along with these, you can put your ideas, thoughts, etc., etc. on post-it notes, and then just have your outline or plot or whatever on the wall. So that is one way that you can outline. Another way, rather. And basically, when I outline, I try to answer the following questions, which are, sorry, I'm just looking at my notebook. Who, what, why, when, and how. So when you're thinking about outlining, if you just want to be very basic and just know the very briefest of what your story is about, you should be asking yourself, what is your story about? So what the idea of the story is. For instance, mine involves a shooting, and my story is about abuse and family dysfunctions and how one person can make a stand and to fight against that. So I'm not very good at describing my novel to anyone right now, but that's how I summarize it. And what's going to happen and who's it going to happen to? So who is it going to happen to? Who are your characters? You can't have a novel without characters, so that's where character development comes in, and where you can do some character interviews or character worksheets. I'm going to link you guys down to some examples, because I'm terrible at showing people examples, especially at outlining, because there's so many different ways you can do it. When I first started this novel, or this story, I was doing a 40-question interview with my characters, so that's how I got to know my characters. Nowadays I do interviews, but I also do something much like Melissa mentioned in her videos. I think it's Melissa's books or something like that. I can never remember her name, but I'll link it below. She mentioned she does kind of like mini scenes where she gets to know her character through mini scenes, and I've been doing that a lot lately through my prompts and through just like visions and stuff of my story. That's how I really get to know my characters, and of course I'm not going to use those bits and pieces while I'm doing Nano, but after Nano I might be able to slip them in, or they might just give me an idea of what to write in Nano. So those kind of mini stories and plots and stuff about your characters are really great ways to outline your characters or get to know and plot your characters as well. So you also want to know why it is happening. Why is whatever is happening in your story happening? That just sounded really weird, but why is it happening? Because you need to know. You need to know why it's happening. You may not know everything, but if you have a vague idea, that really does help. When is it set? When does it happen? What era? What is the time? Is it night? Is it day? Does it happen in a span of 24 hours? Does it happen over a span of a couple of weeks? I think the main thing to focus on when you are plotting and outlining is that nothing is set in stone, because every time you sit down, anything can change, and that is a freedom and kind of, I guess, it's a freedom that you have when you're doing Nano as well, that please be aware that anything you outline is just an outline. That is why it's called an outline. It's not meant to be set in stone. Plotting is not meant to be set in stone. If you want it to be set in stone and you follow that distinctly, that's okay. But if you're just looking for having something to look at and say, okay, this is where my story is going, this is the direction my story is going, then that's okay. And how is it going to happen? Say your character needs to go and save his mother from a giant ferret who eats man-eating spiders, okay? How is that going to happen? If she's on the other side of the world, what's going to happen? Is he going to fly? Is he going to crawl under the dirt? Is he going to ride a pig there? You know, anything like that, you need to know. You don't really need to know exactly everything, but you need to know some basics. So you really would, it's good to know the beginning, middle and the end as well. If you want to do some very brief outlining as well, some things to do are one sentence outline plots. So an example of one sentence outline plots are here, where I have broken up my story into the different parts, like first quarter, second quarter, etc., etc. And I've made my dot points in one sentences. So, for instance, in the first quarter, my character is spending the first night on the street. One sentence, that's all you need to know. That's a very basic thing. And this looks very much like my outline in there. It's pretty similar. So these can really help you break your story down. And I think the thing that you really need to focus on too, even if you're doing basic things like this, is the structure of the story. You need to understand the structure of the story, I believe. Not so much before you can write it, but before you can outline it, at least. But if you're a reader, you've already got these structures ingrained in your brain, but it's a good idea to look over them. So I've left a link below to a video that I have been watching lately, and it is Dan Wells on story structure, and he explains it a lot better than I can, and I can't explain it in a very short period of time. He goes through the seven story structures, and that is hook, plot, turn 1, pinch 1, midpoint, pinch 2, plot, turn 2, and resolution. And that's how you can structure your outline so that you can outline and plot your story. That is one way. I'm trying that method out. I'm not sure how it's going to go, but so far this is my example of how I've been outlining this. if I can find it. Yes, here we go. Again, very different, but yet quite the same. So these are all the parts of the story, and these are all the connecting parts that I have written out. So midpoint, my character is going to decide that he's going to look for his sister and save his family, or get back the only family that he has, and so he has to leave home. And yeah, so that's just an idea. So that's another way how I've outlined and planned my story, and quite frankly, that is my whole story there. So again, this is very brief, and I find that when I'm writing, I don't want to know like pages and pages. I don't want that to be like a whole page yet. I can do that when I finish writing a story and I know everything that's happening and I know what's happened, or when I do some brainstorming during the novel. Another way that you could plan your novel as well is by just writing summaries. These can be, if you want to do chapter by chapter planning, or if you just want to do it like, one day at a time, you can do summaries, which is usually just a couple of paragraphs about what the chapter's about, what the story's about so far in the book, etc. And I've done this so far here and here. And so I know little bits about what's going to happen or what's happening in the story, and I can go back and change that or whatever I want. It's just an outline, so it really helps. Say when I want to sit down and type, I can go, okay, so I'm introducing my character. He's in his bedroom. He is, he's potting plants, and he's growing weed, and he's mulching them and wearing socks. That's not what my story is about, but that's an example. So it really, guys, the point of Nano is not to stress, and I'm just giving you a few ideas of how you can organize or outline or plot your novel. Really, you can start like that, or you can just go into it and do it on the way. There's so many different things. Like, you can wing it, you can plan it, you can meticulously plan your novel. I think those are just really things that work for me. And there's something else I want to talk to you guys about. Notes and cast sheets and quotes. I usually do, like, when I'm planning my novel, I also like to do some fun things. So, for example, with one of my novels, I decided that to make things a lot easier, I was going to have a whole list of names. So if I ever got stuck during November and a character came along and they needed a name, or a street needed a name, or something needed a name, I had a list, and I could just go, okay, so this new character's name's going to be Rowdy. Okay, and you can do this with locations too. You can say, okay, I have a list of locations in a country or a place or whatever, and so today my character's going to be here, and etc, etc, and you can tick them off or cross them out or go back to them when you want to. Some of my locations have been hotels, basements, burges, small towns, rehab clinics, graveyards, castles, those kinds of things. And quotes lists, you can grab some quotes about that you find inspiring, and music lists and stuff like that. That is all part of outlining. That is all part of outlining, guys. Having fun with it. Character lists, because I kept getting confused when I started my novel. I needed to know where all my characters were, who they were, even the minor ones like the shopkeepers and stuff. And you can go as far as like saying who they are, and what scenes they're in, what they mean to the character. The extent is really up to you guys. So again, I'm really sorry, I'm not very good at explaining outlining or showing you guys that, but that is some way that I outline. I'm going to come back and do my the R, which is the second point in my system. I just thought I'd do the third one and get it out of the way while I'm thinking about it, and hopefully that was actually helpful for you guys. So if this was helpful, let me know. If you would like to know anything else, let me know too. I can always make another video on it, and yeah, I'll put some links below that you guys can look at. So I will talk to you guys later. Bye.